My name is Brooks Melchior. We do this every single day, every weekday. Yeah, it's me. Yes, I'm the guy who you've never heard speak or you've never actually seen talk, right? I'm a real person. I'm not two-dimensional. We're doing video and we're doing streaming, and this is a big part of my background and my career here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred. That is to say, I've got a lot of experience in broadcasting that most people don't know about, and we're taking advantage of it here along with the content. And today we're going to have content that affects games, that affects betting lines, right? We're going to have that content, but we're going to have content that you're not going to hear anywhere else in our analysis of what's going on with the World Series, what's going on specifically with the Astros that's not really being disseminated, and that it's already affected the Astros, as an organization. And you could certainly make an argument that Brandon Taubman, the assistant wonderkin general manager under Jeff Lunau with the Astros, was an integral part of the success of the Astros, over the past few years. So with him being fired, that's a big deal. Not to mention this really strange World Series where and I'm not attributing this to karma, but maybe I am. But before I get into the Astros, and I also want to get into the situation with the umpire, our guy Rob Drake, Mr. Civil War, Cival, Civil War umpire Rob Drake, the mad tweeter. Before I get into that, I want to remind you that coming up, or I want to tell you, why would I be reminding you? You don't even know. We just started the show. At the top of the hour, we're going to visit with, and I was just talking to my producer, Cam Smith, who produces the show every day. Does a great job. But we were talking about Rob Perez, who's coming on at the top of the hour. Worldwide WOB. All right. If you're watching this, you've probably been on Twitter. If you've been on Twitter and you're a sports fan, it's almost impossible for you to have missed Worldwide WOB. And like you, if you have that experience where you run across Worldwide WOB because there's like 400 million retweets of one of his tweets that he's sending out, about an NBA player, that's an inside joke that none of us get, whatever, that kind of thing. It's literally physically impossible to be on Twitter and not know who he is if you're a sports fan. Don't have to be a basketball fan, because you've got football fans or basketball. They'll retweet Rob Perez. Rob Perez is a phenomenon on Twitter. That is, man, is that a cliche? Is that ever tired? And he's organic. And I want to talk to him. We're going to talk about the NBA. We'll talk about it on the court. But man, I am really fascinated by how he's been able to capture this audience. And when I say capture an audience, all right, the other day, what was it? A couple of days ago, I had a tweet that I put out and got like 2,500 likes and, 1,000 retweets, something like that. Rob Perez, I saw a tweet that he did earlier this week that was just kind of a funny thing where he was talking about an NBA player and he had the video clip of it. And it's like a really crummy video clip. Not that he always does crummy video clips, but he had just taped it off his TV, right? And I mean, this is a testament to how much people are devoted to him and love him. And so it was designed to be something in which he's describing it, but it really doesn't describe what's happening on the screen. It's kind of an inside joke. You have to follow. It got 832,000 likes last time I checked. Probably over 1 million now likes, right? And if you don't know who he is, if you're not an NBA guy, maybe you know of him, and you looked at that tweet, you'd be like, what? Why is there 1 million? Because this guy is so popular on Twitter that Twitter itself replies to him. Now, how did he do that? How did he do that? Well, we're going to ask him, because he truly is, I've kind of been in that position over the years at times where on my own, obviously you have a ton of help. Like on this show, we have a ton of help with the people at Fancred putting this show on, facilitating, and for that, I'm forever grateful. This has been amazing. And of course, we have our producer, Cam Smith, every single day. I can set my watch to him. So you got to have people with you. If you're going to be a success at anything in life, doesn't matter. But, you know, in comparison to other situations, you know, we don't have 120 people preparing a show for us every day, which I prefer it this way. I love it this way. That's what I want to do. I worked in that world. Well, that's Rob Perez. He is truly, you know, I'm not going to say a singular figure, seems like it. And he has the world of Twitter, at least, in the palm of his hand. And he's also, this is Rob Perez, is going to join us at the top of the hour. And I can't really say this when he's on the air because you know how I am. Sometimes I can come off obsequious, you know. But where, you know, those compliments come from, for me, they're genuine. And so when I'm saying it, I sound like I'm bending over kissing somebody's ass. I don't know. Part of it is, thanks for coming on. You know, really appreciate it. We've got a really big guest, hopefully. Of course, I just jinxed it. Actually, we have more than one coming next week. Huge. Some people who haven't been on the show yet. And you know who they are. You have to know. If you're watching this and you're a sports fan, you know who they are. So, but I'm not going to give it away. That's all I'm going to say. That's next week. And we will be here and we will deliver on that promise. I'm not going to say a day or a time because everything is fluid in sports. God knows, ask the Astros, right? How things are going for them. I mean, it really does almost feel karmic, though, because it's such an extraordinary thing. But, you know, to wrap up Worldwide Wob for now, I was just describing how I'm going on. What I'm trying to communicate is he has bona fides of all the people. We'll put it this way. This whole social media influencer thing, I can't speak to it outside of sports except to look at the numbers. And to look at the numbers isn't the entire picture. By no means is it. Just because you have numbers. Of course, we learned that in the election, right? Presidential election. And Twitter played an integral role in the election, the political process. So, but he is authentic and genuine, and he literally is living in an apartment. I believe he lives in New York City, I think. Watches the games, puts clips together. I don't know what I got to ask him. Like, I want to find out what kind of video editing program are you doing? How do you get the games off TV? Because sometimes, you know, maybe he has this really sophisticated setup. He probably does. And I also want to point out, this is a very sophisticated media, well, obviously media savvy guy, but it translates on the air, this guy, Rob Perez. And you'll see an example of it when he's on with me. And I cannot believe, and I'm not going to put him on the spot, but every time I think about him, and I'm glad we're having him on today, but I'm not going to bring it up, I'm thinking to myself, how is that guy not on television? How is he not doing features on TNT? That would be unbelievable. And when I say that, that would be unbelievable for TNT and TBS and Turner and Bleacher Report, right? They should have that guy. You know what they should do? I should be an agent, right? Because I always think this way. In terms of people's careers and all that stuff. But what would be perfect for Rob Perez is to create like a Madden cruiser, you know, brand it with something that he's associated with, or the NBA is the Kia Cruiser, right? I don't know if that would work because it's not going to be very big if it's a Kia. But he would be the ultimate guy just to put on a tour bus and would probably love it. I mean, I don't know Rob really well personally. I could be speaking out of turn. He may have things going on in his life. He may have opportunities happening. He may be on the air somewhere that I'm not seeing. But he's been on ESPN in the past consistently. And he's done a video podcast with Cassidy Hubbarth. And he's been a high profile mainstream media guy. The legacy electronic media, linear television, right? I love that term, linear television. That reminds me, that kind of term, Cam, reminds me. Jot this down. We have to get Richard Deitch on from Sports Illustrated. No, not anymore. The Athletic. Richard Deitch. We just have to get him on because I really feel like I need him to come on the show. Richard Deitch is a longtime media critic from Sports Illustrated, right? Now he's at The Athletic. And if you work in sports media and you kind of do what I do, or you're an on-air person, or you're a writer, right? Not necessarily a fan, but there are a lot of fans who know who he is. He's got, I don't know, over 100,000 followers, something like that. But everybody knows who Richard Deitch is, and he's got an eponymous podcast that he started over at Sports Illustrated that is now picked up by Jimmy Traina, who's also great, different. Richard now at The Athletic, and Jesus, does he work hard. Holy cow, does he write a lot. He also does radio in Toronto. But the reason I really want to have him on, when we talk about issues, everything's transient, everything's perishable, like on a shelf at the grocery store. Those stores kind of go away unless you're Brandon Taubman of the Houston Astros. And that wasn't a joke. And we'll get into that specifically, exactly what happened coming up. We're going to do it in this hour, by the way. If I ever just get to it, we need to do a segment, or we need to have like Cam, you need to have like some sort of, I don't know, buzzer or something that sends an electric shock over to me. It's the get to it buzzer. But that's what's fun about doing this show, is we can riff, we can have some fun. I can kind of give you a little insight into the business along the way. But what I love about Richard Deitch, if you listen to his podcast, he's going to have, the guys on. Let's talk about Stephen A. Smith, and he's not going to do radio. That's the story right now. Stephen A. Smith's not going to be doing radio anymore for ESPN Radio with his new mega deal. It's like $50 million deal. And I'm not kidding. He's probably going to get that. His agent is a guy named Mark Shapiro, who used to run ESPN at a very young age in the early 2000s. Mark Shapiro was the guy behind ESPN Sports Century. Now, that is a major league old guy reference, ESPN Sports Century. But Mark Shapiro now is at William Morris Endeavor, and he has picked up the representation of Stephen A. Smith. And so what agents do in this situation, if you're Mark Shapiro, at least what he does, is he plants stories. And he makes suggestions through planting stories with strategic media reporters that cover sports. Like, I'm not going to name them because some of them probably come on this show. Some of them I may have mentioned in the last 5 minutes or not. But what happens there is those guys get phone calls from people like Mark Shapiro. And if you're wondering, when you read in however many months it's going to be before he signs his new deal, when you read that Stephen A. Smith is making $10 million a year, right? The reason for that specifically is, in my opinion, from being in the business, my own situation, but innumerable situations of sports media personalities. Obviously, we have a lot of contacts on this show, a lot of contacts, a big Rolodex. I talked to a lot of people over the years. They've counseled me. I've counseled them. So we know a lot of the usual suspects as part of this process. And it's a moving target. It's an intangible. It's subjective. I understand that. But there's some standbys, and sports media critics and writers and reporters and columnists at big newspapers and major online outlets are a staple of this process, and the power of suggestion. One morning, probably 9 months ago, Mark Shapiro got into his Bentley or his Maserati, and as he was passing the UCLA sign adjacent to the Los Angeles Country Club on his way to work at the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and Wilshire Boulevard, that's where the WME Tower is, he struck upon $10 million a year as he was pondering his day, pondering his highest profile client, at least in sports media. There was a moment, there was a synapse that went off in Mark Shapiro's brain. He's one of the guys that runs WME. He has been the de facto agent for Jim Rome for decades, dating back to Shapiro actually working as a production assistant on Rome's old ESPN2 show back in the day. I know, as I say this, Cam, I know if you're actually listening, I know you're really busy, but if you're actually listening to the show, I know that half the time I do these old guy references, but still you're nodding along. Oh, yeah, I remember that. That's the show where Rome got blown over by Jim Everett, if you remember. Yeah, exactly. You're Ken Smith, our producer in Boston here on Fancred. But so Mark Shapiro has that relationship. He runs WME along with Ari Emanuel. It's been a bumpy ride for them, especially of late. They've tried to take Endeavor public. That blew up, didn't work out. It's kind of a WeWork situation, if you will. But I think they'll be all right. But so the whole point of it is, and this is really a commentary on life and how things work. Obviously, there was a person out there who thought, wait a minute, $10 million, Stephen A. Smith, why not? And then let's get on the cell, right? Let's get the speakerphone out. When we're talking to sports media reporters, we don't have the headphones in. We don't have the State Farm Aaron Rodgers agent, the Bluetooth. You don't even go there. This is a speaker. When it comes to people like me and sports media reports, I'm actually below them, right? They are what I aspire to be. But so he calls them on the speakerphone, and he has somebody else dial it. He calls one of these guys who shall remain nameless, and he floats it out there. And of course, what's the basis of it? Do you think he tells those reporters, and I'm not saying Mark Shapiro specifically is doing this. I'm saying this is how things work. This is just an example in trying to help you make sense out of Stephen A. effing Smith making $10 million a year. That's what this is all about. What? That's like drive off the road news. And of course, it's probably not going to be on the news unless you're watching this show. And now you're not only finding out about it, if you don't know about it, this is a guy that you live with. He's like in your damn living room. He's going through your refrigerator, Stephen A. Smith. Pain in the ass, right? But now you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And trust me when I tell you, people are saying, because I know a little bit about the Stephen A. Smith situation, I know a little bit about what's going on, some of which I can't talk about. But I can promise you that when people talk about sports media in the context of a Stephen A. Smith or a show, whether it's ESPN or Fox, FS1, right? The idea that the evaluation of Stephen A. Smith by Jimmy Pitaro, the president of ESPN, and the Disney board, as they sign off on this deal, that he is somehow tangibly, directly, objectively paying for himself in ad revenue, whatever, or setting the ratings up for ad revenue, whatever it is, generating enough money to pay that. That's the last thing on their mind. What they want at ESPN and Fox is compelling content, right? Compelling content that will get you through to the next game. It's all about artful fill, giving off the appearance that something's really, really compelling and important. And in Stephen A. Smith's case, I mean, ESPN, it's amazing, has built this ecosystem. I know I'm off track and we need to talk about the Astros, but I just love talking about this, and I haven't talked about it before. But I just want to give you a little insight into how, the inside baseball, and I think it's interesting. I mean, Jesus, if you've got Fancred on your phone right now and your tablet, and I know there's some people out there who do, and I really appreciate you guys tuning in every day, and our audience is growing, of course. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's why we're here. That's why I'm here, to give you some concrete stuff as to why things are happening. And I know I've been overselling a lot over the first couple of months. Keep saying that over and over again. Well, I'm not going to keep doing that. But once we're, rolling after 4 or 5 months, you don't have to say it anymore. You already know because people are here. Word's out. But that's what we do. And, well, then get to it, for crying out loud. So, but it literally is a case where Mark Shapiro woke up on a certain side of his 8-sided bed. There's probably no side. It's probably one of those big circular beds or whatever. And he's got an unbelievable view, right? Woke up one morning, couldn't find a corner of the bed, but still had this inspiration. $10 million. 8 figures. Why not? Now, here's the irony, and here's some inside scoop for you. When it comes to salaries for talent, probably about, maybe you don't, they've had mass layoffs at ESPN, right? That involved John Skipper. He's gone. And he didn't do a very good job keeping things buttoned up financially. What we have now in Jimmy Pitaro is a Bob Iger mini-me. Total bloodless pragmatist. Fine. Business. That's Bob Iger. How do I know? Look at the statement that he didn't make, per se, right? About China this week when he was asked about it in an interview. I think it was with a Hollywood Reporter, if I'm not mistaken, where he just said in the interview, this is Bob Iger, who runs ESPN, runs Disney, right? Parent company of ESPN. Bob Iger just came out and looked the reporter in the eye, I'm sure, and said, look, we make a lot of money over there. The last thing I'm going to do is comment about China politically, right? We make a lot of money. That's my comment. Now, right? I don't know if that's going to satisfy China per se. It's not exactly an endorsement, but if you're a shareholder, wow, that's music to your ears, right? You think about the amount of money that's at stake. And of course, where Disney is right now, they're in this kind of transitional state. It seems like they've been in it forever, thanks to the likes of Netflix and Amazon pushing them in that direction. Thank you, Netflix, because you really have done a great job in creating. Amazing what happens when you have competition, right? In creating these new ecosystems of content and generating original content like at ESPN on ESPN Plus. Listen, it's $4.99 right now. Get it. If you don't already get it, just get it. There's so much on there. There's so many things you never hear about. Original stuff. Unbelievable. Really cool. The Peyton's Place thing. Amazing. And I am not beneath checking in on Chris Berman on Sunday nights when he does primetime. You may actually have a Brooks sighting watching his tablet, watching ESPN. Now, that said, it's $4.99 for now. It's going to be bundled initially with Disney Plus when it comes out. And so get it while it's hot. That's the best I can tell you with those prices. Because this is all about Apple. It's all about undercutting Apple, or Apple's undercutting Disney, or whatever it is. So, but getting back to the way things work and how people get paid and the status of that situation right now, what makes the Stephen A. Smith thing so extraordinary in a way is his salary is exploding exponentially, right? And his salary is exploding exponentially while everyone else's salary, if they're still employed. Think about all those layoffs, right? Great people that got laid off. Golden handcuffs. The people that are still around at ESPN, that salary market has proceeded to crash for virtually, 95% of on-air talent. There is that thin air up there with Stephen A. Smith. Perhaps a guy like, I have to sit and think about it. Max Kellerman actually is a guy that's in that category because Max Kellerman has a close relationship with Jimmy Pitaro, which is great. This is going to be like the gossip corner of sports media at some point, because I'm just going to keep that's not like that big of a deal. But I can tell you, Max Kellerman and Jimmy Pitaro, of people that are in that neighborhood, bodes well, right? And it's a little counterintuitive because Max, of course, is a lefty, a liberal. That's his role that he plays. And I love Max. I do actually enjoy him. I think the key to me liking Max, right? Number one is the baseline of boxing. He did a show out here in LA, a talk show that was amazing. It was a radio show with Marcellus Wiley. And there's been talk he may take that 2-hour slot back on radio with Stephen A. I told you earlier, vacating ESPN radio. But the thing about Max Kellerman, I cannot maintain my affinity for him if I'm watching First Take more than a minute a week. If I watch First Take more than a minute a week, it's physically impossible to like the hosts. It's impossible because it's so dumbed down. It's so cynical. It's so patronizing, right? And this is what I was going to bring up earlier as well, and I didn't get to. There's a couple of things I want to get to. How the salaries have crashed at ESPN with talent, which makes the situation with Stephen A. Really amazing. And one of the reasons that he's in that situation is he's got Mark Shapiro as his freaking agent. Guy who runs WME, for crying out loud, or at the very top of the company. This is not a typical agent. This is a guy who is a market mover. This is a guy who has, to say he has juice is about as big an understatement in sports media as you can make. When you look at how WME is in bed with UFC in a big way and committed to UFC, it's a big part of that company and the future of that company, along with ESPN has made a huge financial commitment to UFC in order to try to prop up ESPN Plus. That's another really interesting story, how ESPN's trying to manufacture MMA, right, as a mainstream sport, which it really has fallen off the map. And I think the last 5-10 years, that's a whole nother story to get into. And, we may get into that. That's a subject, and you should jot that down as the producer, Cam Smith, our producer. Just the whole situation with WME going all in on UFC, and then ESPN kind of going all in on UFC leaving Fox. I want to talk to Jay Glazer about that because I think we're going to have Jay on in 2 weeks, not next week, but the week after. Jay Glazer is going to come on. And I think what we're going to do is an extended interview. We have yet to do that. Now, it's not going to be 5 hours. It's going to be like 30 minutes. But I don't think we've had anybody. Well, we've had a few people, but it was just a natural thing. We went like 30 minutes or 25 minutes. Jay Glazer is coming in. I don't know if he's going to come in. We've got to figure this studio out. I'd love to do that where he could come in and be on with me because he lives right down the street from here. So we hang out. So we'll have him on, and we're going to talk to him about MMA because there's a lot of stuff about Jay Glazer that's amazing that people don't know. Speaking of that, like top 1% of the sports media business, he really defines it. But so the marketplace for on-air talent in terms of the salary framework and structure has all but crashed for some of the lower profile or middle of the road personalities at ESPN. I'm not saying it's happening at Fox. I'm not saying it's happening around the country at other companies. NBC, CBS, that's not what I'm saying. And that's not the case at NBC, at least. I know that for a fact. But it's being spurred on by a response from ESPN and specifically Disney, a bottom line response to all of the layoff payouts, all of the people who still have golden handcuffs that they're continuing to pay, not to work. I mean, Jay Crawford, friend of the show, Cleveland guy now, legend at ESPN. I think he was out like 2 years. He was laid off. Nonsensical, by the way. No rhyme or reason to the layoffs. I mean, Mark Stein is a basketball Hall of Famer. He's a young guy, and he breaks news. What? Now, I know there was a dynamic there with some other people, shall remain nameless, at least for now. What happened there? So that's what's happening at ESPN. It's really kind of a reaction to how the financial side of the business for ESPN is a catastrophe. And then you're also a loss leader with ESPN Plus in launching that. This is a long-term strategy. And I think it's just speaks to the personality of Iger and Pitaro, same guy, same type of mentality. I'm not saying they're not content guys, creative guys. I'm sure they are. But when you have that perspective, and that's the individuals who are running ESPN, right? You're going to have somebody with the mindset of, okay, we're not going to pay anchors $2 million a year, right? Unless their name is Chris Berman or Keith Olbermann, or, I mean, Jimmy Pitaro is really invested in old time ESPN. And who's to say that's a bad idea? It's fine with me. So getting back to kind of wrapping up my thought on this, Stephen A. Smith worth that amount of money because ESPN's willing to pay it. So out of everything that I just said, if the salary structure at ESPN is crashed, and there's a lot of people who would dispute that, namely agents, right? And they probably could come on here and make citations about their clients, other people that they know are making a lot of money. I could be spewing misinformation, disinformation, right? But this is what my personal experience has been, not with me, because I'm not going to work at ESPN, no interest. I've worked at ESPN in the past, but people that I know that are people and just canvassing people, relationships. And that's what's happening there. Man, I love this show, by the way. I love the ability to bring this to you and not have somebody chirping in my ear 24/7 with the IFB. Not having all the requisite, oh my God, the commercials. Jesus. I've got the iHeartRadio app. I don't know about you, but there are some exceptions to, the rule when it comes to radio shows and commercials. But if it's an iHeart station, forget about it. It's just, and you're talking to a longtime radio guy, and that's how bad it is. It makes the product unlistenable. Now we're free flowing. This is like connective tissue. We don't have to stop and we don't have to start. And that's why it's also critical, I think, for us to get great guests. So now when we go into Rob Perez, because that's really where this discussion began, his influence on the media. Now you're kind of prepped and you're primed a little bit more. But so what I wanted to point out about ESPN, remember I said earlier, I like Max Kellerman. Tremendous guy on boxing. Love him. Actually, good sports talk show host. Has been a good sports talk show host here in Los Angeles on ESPN 710, where I used to do a midday show. And he did the show with Marcellus Wiley. Great show. All right. But I can't watch First Take. I just can't do it. It's so contrived and so staged and ridiculous and embarrassing. And Stephen A is sleep deprived and just, it's nonsense. Nonsense. In so many different ways. It's not worth documenting. But a big part of why I'm unable to watch it is another reason why, and no offense to Will Kane. I don't have a problem with Will Kane. I don't have a problem with any of these guys. I really don't. He's fine. He's a big success now. But when I listen to his show, which is now on in Los Angeles, they've blown out the middays in LA. I know, oh, we're talking about LA radio. Great. But no, but my point is in bringing this up, right? So now I'm in Los Angeles. I get off this show. I'm in my car. I want to listen to ESPN 710 LA and listen to Mason in Ireland. They've been on middays in Los Angeles like 25 years, literally. And they've been moved to afternoon drive in order to make room for the Will Cain show. Okay. That's a big deal in Los Angeles. I think it is. I'm a radio guy. I live off of radio, even when I'm not doing this job. Right. I used to be on that show for years, but they moved Mason in Ireland to afternoon drive. John Ireland, of course, is if you don't know, the voice of the Lakers. And you've now got a national show. It's not really a function of Will Cain because he's doing what everybody else does on those shows. What can you really do? You're doing a national show. Let's talk about the Niners. Who's the best team? Let's do a list. Breaking it down. But that's part of it. They're just doing what they're slicing and dicing it 50 different ways. The same thing. But here's the big issue with that kind of programming that makes it, and in the case of radio, it's not Will Cain, it's everybody. It makes it unlistenable. Will Cain and Stephen A. Smith and everybody, they spend probably like 75%, maybe not 75, 60%, 65% of their show referring to ESPN personalities. And it's like this pro wrestling ecosystem, especially with somebody like Stephen A. Smith, who, if you were ever going to have a drop, Cam, if we were ever going to get a drop on this show, right, one of the first things I would want to try to find would be Stephen A. Smith saying, I'm on the record as saying, right? Implying I'm on the record. That's a Stephen A. Smith line, crutch phrase that he uses. I'm on the record as saying. What does that tell you right there? Remember I told you there's this ecosystem set up and it's a walled garden. Very much so. I mean, that's why ESPN people don't go guesting on other shows. And that's a function of this extraordinarily huge PR department that they have had at ESPN. This is different. It's not like any other kind of media company. ESPN is a unique situation when it comes to PR. It is a monstrosity, right? So I think it kind of emanates out of that because they are kind of the oracles of that ESPN worldwide leader, in sports and all those cliches, that culture, the celebration of Chris Berman and all these legends and, mythologizing them. That's not a coincidence. You don't see that at NBC. You don't see that at CBS with sports. You don't see that at Fox. You only see it at ESPN. And it's not because ESPN is so much more successful or makes that much more money. No, it's because that's the culture of the company. It's grounded in this huge PR department. And there's guys that run the PR department. Chris LaPlaca is at the very top. You got guys like Josh Krulowitz, who I know. They miss nothing. It's unbelievable. It's like Joe Paterno when he was 90, right? When they told us that Joe Paterno's not missing anything. Oh, but then he was, right? But no, I mean, they miss nothing at ESPN. And so this all gets back, believe me, I'm not just meandering around here. This all gets back to that ecosystem, that walled garden. So here's the thing. If you're willing, and why wouldn't you be? If you're willing to buy into, right, the idiosyncrasies of Stephen A. Smith and their Trey Wingo, who's fine, whatever. If you're willing to really buy into their inside jokes and their running discussion about things that are going on at ESPN that have nothing to do with sports, really, or the constant, I'm on the record like we have a scoreboard for these shows, because that's really what this is. It's creating that environment, the whole debate, phony baloney debate thing. And, there is some validity to that principle, because that's what sports is. We sit around, we go to lunch. If me and Cam went to lunch, you know what we would do? And let's say I was living in Boston, Cam, or you're living down here, and you're a big sports guy. I'm a big sports, I'm a Georgia fan. I'm a Chiefs fan. You have your teams. And so we're going to needle each other. Right. And that's a lot of what they do. I think that I don't think that's the basis of what they're doing. I think I know they're trying to deliberately create conflict. I mean, that's been going on since the beginning of radio with consultants. That's what they teach you, to create some sort of pressure points to compel people to listen. So, that's why I can't buy into that. I just can't do it, because I'm listening because I want to know, first of all, what happened in sports. What the hell's going on? Wait a minute. Michael Bennett just got traded for a 7th round pick. What? Josh Gordon? I mean, this is a great example, right? What's happened to the Patriots this week? Look, you're limited in what you're going to get on ESPN. You're going to get Schefter. You're going to get your requisite guys, but you're not going to go outside those walls, right? And that's why I'm not a big consumer of ESPN. I'm not a guy I'm not trying to denigrate it all, but maybe I am. A great way to crystallize this whole discussion is, I don't want Stephen A. Smith's autograph, right? I'm not really all that impressed with the on-air people. And there's really nothing you can do in the context of sports media that would make me think, when that sports media personality walked in the door and I'm at Yard House or something, I'm just going to drop everything, drop my friend's conversation. You have friends like that. When the punter for the Chargers comes in the door, oh my God, freak out. And people are like that with ESPN. Used to be people showing up. Why wouldn't they be? I mean, I'm a very different person. I recognize that. Totally different. But that's what ESPN trades on. That's what they traffic. And that's what Stephen A. Smith is an epitome of. So when you're asking, why is he making $10 million a year? He is on the top of that pyramid, that ecosystem, which, it's a little backwashy every day, right? But I mean, so let me give you a specific example of what I'm talking about. And this is not to denigrate the guy. Actually, I'm not going to even name him. So over the weekend, the NFL team won a game, right? And this host on ESPN radio, right? It was a weekday show. The whole show, because I was dropping in and out, trying to find out what's going on in sports. So I'm flipping around and I'm listening to, snatches of his show, 45 seconds at a time. And the whole show was the fact that he was a fan of this team and that the performance of the quarterback of that team was better than another quarterback on another team. And this was an ongoing thing. And so he would have callers call in. And so that's the entertainment of that show. That's what they do. And they do it almost every day on that show. And so that's what I mean. And of course, you're going to have themes on a show anyway. But much of it is based on who are the other ESPN personalities who are part of this. Great. That's fine. But I really don't care that you were right. And what's really infected ESPN, I think, in its content, not the evening content or the weekend content, but the daylight hours, right, is this idea of placing that sort of stuff above the basics. Just give me, let me tell you, an analogy would be, and Monday Night Football is really an abuser of this sort of thing. Can you please show me a replay? Just one replay. I just watched this unbelievable play or this controversial situation or, whoa, what just happened? Can we get a replay? Do we have to go to commercial instantly? Or Do we need an overhead shot or do we need a crowd shot? How about just a replay? Get to the game, right? Do we have to cut away? This is Monday Night Football. This is what they do. We got a replay. We're cutting away. Or, hey, look at this view of the pier. You watch those ESPN shows, right? Ooh, looky there, the Brooklyn Bridge. It's all sparkly today, right? Let's go to NBA Jump and wow, it's a big fake vinyl sign like what I have right here of the Santa Monica Pier. It's not real. It's fine. And I love Rachel Nichols, by the way. She's awesome. Great at what she does on the air. But that's ESPN. Everything but the reason I'm tuning in, which is to get the damn score or get the damn replay or find out. And this is a great example right here. All right. Yesterday, the number one team in sports right now, the New England Patriots, period. Right. This week, they've had two moves that if you're not really following the Pats are mystifying, right? We hear how great Josh Gordon is, then he's not. He's got this background with substance abuse, and we're hearing about these knee problems now, and he's gone. He's just gone. Okay, he goes from being the number one receiver. Maybe he never was. Maybe that's what that was the case, obviously. All right, so you have that. Okay, why is the Patriots' supposed number one receiver just poof? And no pun intended, right? Poof. Okay, when I tune in to a show, of course I don't do it, right? No, I'm doing it right now. I'm going to give you some insight on that. But that's not really what we're here for. In what we're here to do is to take things. This is a little bit of a riff because we're not doing guests as much as we normally do today. I wanted to open it up a little, get some space here, and bring in Rob because he's kind of a non-traditional. We're going to talk some NBA with him, but he's kind of a non-traditional thing, and so I want to entertain you. But we're going to talk about some things here coming up that are relevant. But I think in backgrounding you on the business is really important, and make sense of things. And one thing to always remember, and the best example there is college football, is television runs college football, period. You could say the same thing about the NFL. No, you can't. Television drives revenue. It's essential, but it doesn't run the NFL in the end. The television networks, ESPN, Fox, CBS, they run college football literally. So when you hear a Kirk Herbstreit, right? When you hear a Kirk Herbstreit talking about a team, how good that team is, where that team should be ranked, that affects where that team's going to be ranked. Of course, so much of college football, because we don't have standardized schedules, we don't have any coherence whatsoever, it remains a beauty contest. At least you have a semblance of a playoff. But when people like him weigh in, we look at it like every other sport, Oh, it's like Scottie Pippen on NBA Jump, whatever. No, it's not. It literally moves markets. I mean, I look at message boards all the time because that's where you can get a lot of really interesting intel about college football particularly. And not a day goes by that I'm not on the LSU message board or the Bama or the USC, just looking through stuff, because there's a lot of things that people post in there that it's almost like you have a staff of people if you know where to go. And not a day goes by that I don't read Kirk Herbstreit just gave his power rating or the top teams, and he just discounted this team. Listen to Herbie really closely. I worked with Kirk for years. If you don't know, I did a show with him, talk show, weekday show. But he gives off subtle signals during shows. We may talk when we have him on the show, which we will. We'll talk to him about it. He's just so subtle, and he can stick the needle in. And when I watch, I mean, the guy is unbelievable. It sounds like I'm kissing his ass because I know him, but I'm not. He is like as prepared as he's ever been. He is the standard. And nobody, in my mind, this is me talking, is more influential at ESPN because college football not only is driven by television and ESPN, right? College football drives ESPN. So it's this reciprocal arrangement because most of ESPN's revenue, besides cable subscriptions, which still is their top revenue producer, they're trying to transition over to ESPN Plus, right? Over the top, the subscriptions. Outside of that, the revenue they make from college football is number two. Now, it's way down the list. The subs are still way up there, the cable subscriptions. That's how important cable still is to the business. And that's why they're frantically getting this ESPN Plus thing up and investing a lot of money and making a big commitment. And for now, hey, it's great. It's a great deal. We'll see how long that lasts. I don't want to be cynical about it, but we've got Rob Perez coming up worldwide. Wob, this is Sports by Brooks on Fancred. You know, I just wanted to kind of sit down on the couch with you today. We're not really on the couch, but just kind of sit here. I was really thinking about this last night because we've been so loaded with guests, an unbelievable week of guests. We're going to have some big guests next week. Like I said before, haven't been on the show before. Big guests. And not just guests to have guests. Hopefully now you're seen on the show every day. When we bring Ian on or we bring newsmakers on, market movers on, we're just getting to it, man. We're talking turkey. We're not messing around. But on a day like today, I wanted to touch on a couple of stories and then also bring a guy on that I think is a non-traditional guest, but wildly influential, Rob Perez. That's at the top of the hour. But I wanted to address and to wrap my whole statement about ESPN. It's that ecosystem. It's the incestuous nature of the interactions. Think of it this way. You listen to your local sports radio show. Some of you do. Or you watch somebody consistently or a podcast, right? And so there's certain idiosyncrasies that go into that person's personality, you know, their wife, parent corner with Bill Simmons, things like that, right? And of course, that's prevalent in every show. We're human beings. We relate our lives to you. It's not just all black and white talking statistics and evaluating games. But imagine if that whole inside joke thing, going back, took over the show of your local show, right? And I think a great example in a show that I've been turned on to since I started doing this show, and it's the show of shows right now. I think it won like the award for the best talk show out there, sports talk show, is Felger and Maz on 98.5, the Sports Hub. And so that show to me is about as perfect as you can get in that they inject some personality here and there, especially when they do live reads and spots, right? And so you get the flavor of the personalities. You know what the roles are here, what everybody's doing. They're very consistent. But at the end of the day, there's meat on the bone, right? We're talking like, and I just brought it up, Josh Gordon. Why is he gone? Well, when I listen to that show, I'll guarantee you I know, or at least I have a bead on it after one or two segments. They get to it. Michael Bennett. When I heard about Michael Bennett getting traded for the 7th round pick to the Cowboys, well, I had listened to that show yesterday. And so I already had this kind of background of where that was going with him before he was traded. This was before he was traded. I was listening to that show. So look, the guys, they're interesting guys, entertaining guys. That's fine. But that doesn't take over the show. Kind of like this show. We're taking over with my personality today. I know no substance whatsoever. No, I'm trying to give you a little method into my obvious madness. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to find out or hear or participate on this merry-go-round. I'm on the record. Now I'm going to have Cam looking for that on YouTube. That should be a meme, right? Who does this speaks to Stephen A's genius, because the key to being a genius, the first thing you've got to have is to know you're a genius. Ralph Waldo Emerson, self-reliance. And Stephen A defines that, right? Bless his heart. Now, I'm not going to move a muscle to, well, and he's a nice guy. It'd be kind of fun to hang out with him or meet him, I guess, but I'm not really. I'm not really, invested in that sort of thing. And now we're kind of running up towards the interview with Rob Perez. So, we don't have enough time. But I do want to address the situation with the Astros. Okay. Because this is one of those stories where it's being completely unreported, really, what actually happened with the Astros assistant general manager, Brandon Taubman. I'm not going to get into all the gory details. You already know what happened last weekend. He screamed, "We're so glad we have Roberto Osuna." Osuna was an alleged domestic abuser. Very, very curious circumstances, so much so that the Blue Jays gave up on him. 75-game suspension. Serious stuff. Astros pick him up. And then you've got this dumbass Brandon Taubman yelling in what we now understand was an all but empty part of the clubhouse where there were not interviews going on. This is what we've come to find out from the Major League Baseball investigation, right? From third-party reporters. Obviously, if you're ever going to do something like this, something stupid, bad judgment, it's literally the worst place on earth to do it. Hey, let's do it right in front of where all the reporters are congregated or not congregated, So now we have an intimate knowledge through MLB. Now, we don't know exactly what the details are, but MLB's actions have told us that Brandon Taubman's an asshole. That I'm looking at a note from Cam Smith, our producer in Boston here on Fancred. But the fact that the way this thing was handled, right? In a normal situation where you don't have this ascendant general manager, right? Jeff Lunhow of the Astros and what he's built. And I wouldn't be surprised at all. I would not be surprised in the least if they rip off 4 wins. And part of me would like to see it just to see how things would go over in DC. Schadenfreude. That's an eternal impulse that I have as a sports fan. But, and coming up, we're going to talk hopefully to Rob Perez. Let me check my messages here. So I might send this number to you, Cam. See if we can't get this guy on. Let me see, because he may be able to fill us in on. I'm interested to hear what he. Actually, you know what? Let's not do it. We'll get him on next week, because this is a guy who's been out front on Twitter. Now he is a media guy, but he's been tweeting some things that got my attention, got me to look into the background of Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros, and what an a-hole he is. Discriminatory, practices against pregnant women and African Americans. And the guy's suing the EEOC. He sued the EEOC because the EEOC came out with this scathing report about his business, not the Astros. The guy that runs the Astros, owns the Astros. He has this Eagle Freight Shipping, whatever it is, right? So, this guy, he wasn't even being sued. It's just that this 100-page report came out that detailed all of these embarrassing things that he'd been doing to his employees. Not embarrassing, like grievous injustices. Or employees that never knew they actually should have had a chance to be an employee because he was locking them out, literally, physically, telling his employees, this is the owner of the Astros, for his other company, telling those employees, don't let black people in the door to apply for a job. Literally. That's what was going on at this guy. And this is unbelievable. Don't let pregnant women into the building to apply for a job with our company. That's what Jim Crane was doing. How do we know that? Because the lead legal counsel of this big company that made all this money so he could buy the Astros, she flipped, right, and testified against him. Now, why was she testifying? There was no legal situation. There was no litigation going on. This is the EEOC. You're not being, because Jim Crane sued the government to try to shut down the facts from coming out through the EEOC. And when he did that, he put himself on the hook to have to pay, I think it was upwards of 8 figures in damages to those employees who otherwise wouldn't have gotten anything if he wasn't such an a-hole. So that gives you an idea of the guy who's running the team and why Brandon Taubman would essentially get away with writing that first statement himself, saying that Sports Illustrated, these women, Stephanie Epstein, who wrote the story for Sports Illustrated, and 2 other women, they fabricated this story. Talk about brazen, talk about hubris. This is a clubhouse. You've got the Houston Chronicle there. You've got the Athletic there. You've got USA. How do I know? Because MLB talked to them. And that's why Taubman was fired. He was not going to be fired. So we'll get back to that. But now I want to bring in a guy, and it's an honor to have him on the show because he's arguably, I think, the most influential sports media member on Twitter. He's a phenomenon. We're lucky to have him today. And of course, the NBA season is the reason I really am tuned into what's going on in the NBA as to kind of the overarching trends, if you will, with the league. And, he lets you in on things about certain teams that you wouldn't otherwise know because he has this intimate relationship with the NBA in general. He's this beloved figure, but he has the ability to get your attention about the Memphis Grizzlies or whatever it may be. He has, certain things that he goes back to, and he's kind of this mysterious figure. People say that about me, right? Well, not anymore. Here we are. So that's why I wanted to have him on. But he's the guy. I mean, ultimately, it's a numbers game. In the case of Twitter, it probably shouldn't be anymore, right? But in his case, this is a guy with bona fides. This is a guy who's authentic. This is a guy who's genuine. This is a guy who doesn't have a staff of 5,000 people. He's done it on his own. And I'm literally in awe of what the guy does on Twitter, the influence that he has. It really is. Somebody should be writing like a dissertation or a PhD about it. So, hey, Rob, I can't thank you enough. Thanks a lot for hanging in there, man, and joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. And first of all, most influential sports media person is, wow. That's a lot of gas for a guy that's sitting here watching first generation iPads, ripping streams and stuff like that. I certainly thank you, but that's a lot to live up to. I can name a lot of people deserving of that title.
I do love the fact that there's this mix and match sourcing going on with the video. Sometimes it's just recorded right off the TV. Sometimes you've got this other sort of. So describe what your setup actually is for what you do.
Well, can you see me right now, or can you only hear me?
I can see you.
Okay, not everyone can see us, but what I'm doing right now for everyone that's listening is I'm showing you my apartment of what the setup looks like.
Here we go.
There's a bunch of iPads and old computers sitting around a desk. So I've got two laptops, 2 iPads, 2 TVs, and I can split the computers up into quad boxes so I can handle up to 11 games at once. But the videos that you're talking about that end up on the internet, they're either ripped from an iPhone 6 that I just take off my phone, or some, if they come from a specific computer, I can pull the HD just through screen capture. But people are always asking, like, it's 2019. Do you not know how to screen capture? I'm like, yes, I obviously do. But when there's many games on at the same time, I would have to shut down 4 games for like 5 minutes and then reload them. It's just not like worth it, because by the time I'm done doing that, 10 minutes have passed and everyone's already seen it. So it's just a strategy thing for me.
Man, I got so many questions for you because I just remember I was telling this story earlier. You sent out a tweet, and maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe this didn't happen, or maybe it happened, or maybe this is typically for you. But there's like 840,000 likes. Is that something that, am I wrong about that? I mean, there was like a million likes.
It may be one that's a lot. Like maybe 1 or 2 in the past have gotten to that point, like something crazy viral. But It's honestly just comes down to the timing of things. People are watching the game in the moment, and we're in 2019 where the second screen experience has become everything. People are not just watching a linear broadcast anymore. If they're not watching an actual feed from, let's say, like a player ISO cam or a TNT overtime per se, they're scrolling their timeline in their lap with something. So just being the timeliness of, if you hit the right moment, you kind of strike gold and you're the first one to do it. That's how a tweet like that can certainly blow up. But I don't think I've gotten to like 1 million before on a tweet, but certainly close.
So are you up all day, every day, just watching games and trying to provide some sort of service for people on Twitter? Of course, you're at the Action Network too.
Right.
But I mean, what are you doing every day? Describe kind of your schedule and your responsibilities, at least that you carved out for yourself and maybe with Action Network.
Right. I don't know if it's if I'm complimenting myself or making myself look terrible, but I honestly haven't missed a dribble of NBA basketball in probably 3 years. And that's just from the commitment of sitting here and just watching every single game, every single night. That's just something I chose to do. And it's how I kind of created this opportunity for myself. So I kind of consider that going to class, right?
But here's the thing, Rob, that's not enough. I mean, you have so many intangibles. You're selling yourself short in a sense in that you're attaching that. And but a lot of people could if they're independently wealthy or something, I know you're getting paid to do it, but man, I think that you have this alchemy that you're able to create that you can't really ever plan or account for. But go ahead. I rudely interrupted you. Take me through the process.
That's fine. So I consider from 7 p.m. to, let's say, 1:30 when the West Coast, the Laker games and the Warrior games, when those end, 7 o'clock p.m. East Coast to that time is class. That's when you are in there learning about the games, things that are going to be talked about the next day on talk shows, potential story ideas, right? It is my job to create content around the NBA. So when the games are over for me, that's when I go to work. Like when 1:30, 2 o'clock, like Kawhi's press conference didn't start until 2:30 at opening night. So once he's done, I start thinking of ideas that I can produce into content for the employers that are signing my checks. And by the time the sun's coming up here. So my schedule is probably the inverse of most 9 to 5 people out there. But that's more, I'm just at the mercy of East Coast watching the NBA. And I personally get my most creativity done between those hours of 3 and 6 because everybody's sleeping and there's nothing for me to like procrastinate and distract myself. So that's when I hope to file something creative or at least start working on a project that I can debut.
So talk about your relationship to creating content for Twitter as opposed to maybe creating content for the Action Network website. How does that work for you?
So Twitter limits you to 280 characters, but you can also upload videos and things like that. So, people enjoy the jokes. They enjoy the within 30-second reactions and kind of improv style type of content. But when I'm, getting paid, I'm not getting paid to just tweet. I'm also getting paid to promote, drive people to the website and create content that gives the people a reason to start following a brand. So for me, I always use, the games itself as kind of a platform, but ultimately I'm trying to drive them to something that is bigger, whether that's something for me personally or, one of my many employers in the past. I do see the games itself strictly as a funnel. And then my A work, the stuff that you really like are passionate about, the projects in the actual like articles in the video content, that stuff doesn't happen in those 30 seconds that you can write 200 character tweets. The platform for that is, currently the Action Network.
Right. Visiting with Worldwide Wob, Rob Perez. So tell us the story behind your Twitter handle, because I'm one of these people who you flew through my timeline every damn day. I'm like, wow, this is like, what is this, a weird dude? And he's got this strange thing on his screen. I think there's a lot of people who have that response, and it's a revelation to see you when I've seen you on ESPN, talk to you when we did our interview for my website. It's really stunning to see that you're this multimedia personality. But give us a little background on Worldwide Wob, how that all happened and came together.
Sure. So there's 2 parts. The first of which is the handle Worldwide Wob. Worldwide is a ode to the great Worldwide Wes, who was the original Rich Paul. He was the power broker in the early 2000s for Leon Rose, Carmelo, LeBron. Like Worldwide Wes operated in the shadows. He was the Wizard of Oz. And just that's always been the way I've done business. And I just knew he was pulling the strings, and I absolutely loved it. So the worldwide part of it is kind of a testament to him. Wob is just my first name, Rob, but my fifth grade girlfriend couldn't pronounce the letter R. It sounded like a W, so I was always called Wob. So hence Worldwide Wob was born from Worldwide Wes. And then there's the avatar, which is Adam Silver wearing a Darth Sidious from Star Wars Snuggie, pretty much. You know, when he walks around in the black hoodie. And I've only had two avatars, the first of which was David Stern in a very similar type of outfit. And now it's Adam Silver. I've always been just a fan, kind of a stan almost, of the NBA commissioner, David Stern being one of those behind the scenes guys. I love the villains. I love the darts, the Emperor Palpatines and the bad heel wrestlers. And David Stern was always that guy for me, asking the crowd to boo him. I loved every single minute of it. So that's the theme.
So this is really embarrassing, and really embarrassing. It's probably the most embarrassing moment of this show so far. We've been doing it about 2 months.
Uh-oh.
I didn't know your avatar was Adam Silver. I actually thought, and I should know this because I've seen you and now we're talking, but I've seen a million pictures. You sent me a picture, put it on the website. I actually thought it was you. What was I think? It's like, get off the pharmaceuticals or something. I mean, what's the problem? But so that's Adam Silver.
Yes. You know what the funny part is Adam Silver and I are from the same town and we went to the same high school. So we've talked about this many times, and there's more stories actually that I'm got to keep private, but we have a weird connection, including the avatar, but I'm glad you learn something every day. So there you go.
Here's what, and we're visiting with Rob Perez, of course, Worldwide Wob, the man on Twitter. But here's what threw me off, and tell me if I'm wrong. You would describe you sometimes you drop things in about your personal life, like you're dating or you're not dating or you're eating something or you're on this trend. Am I right?
Yeah.
You'll kind of like take us down a path and then you'll veer off and okay, this thing's going on over here. And then what you'll do, but I might be wrong, is you'll in some way express that through your avatar photo that's related to your own personal life. Now, is that making sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think
now you know I'm the real guy. I'm an aficionado.
Yeah. So it does require an explanation for anyone watching this. That's like, what the hell is this dude talking about? So, me personally, I'm just a dude. I'm a single guy that lives in an apartment here in Manhattan. As much as I love the NBA, I kind of chose my personal platform on Twitter, not to be in 100% NBA account. I like to sometimes, poll the room and have focus groups of things that are going on in my life with things I'm willing to share. Obviously, there's some flack I have to take for that, but I made the decision that this is going to be a 75% NBA account, 25% real life and things people can relate to. And, that's just, I think why people continue to come back here is they feel like they can relate to me on a personal level, because I am honestly just a normal guy like everyone else that just loves the NBA. So I have to find a way to kind of transmit that to the audience. And I felt like that wouldn't be the case if it was just 100% NBA highlights and comments and stuff like that. Now, in regards to the actual photo, which you inquired about, that's like a mood ring. So if somebody's launching threes and like making everything like Trae Young last night, you put the Super Saiyan hair on them. If I'm having a bad day with the Knicks or something, I've got like all these different Knicks hats that I put on so people know, like,
dude, you need to do like a glossary and maybe put it on Action Network or something, or do something in your like media area where you have like a glossary of these references, because I follow it, but man, that would be really cool. And I think it'd be really neat, but it'd be a lot of work. Easy for me to say, right?
I have them all stored, so that's not the hard part. What the challenge here is I've challenged my followers the same way that you were supposed to catch Pokemon back in the day.
Right.
You catch all of the avatars while they're still up. So I have a guy that's almost got every single one of them.
Wow.
He's up to there's 150 and he's up to 135. Awesome. So he keeps what he calls a Wabadex of it. And every time I change it to a rare avatar, I have a prize for someone that's going to get all 150. And that's kind of the game of it all. It's stupid, but
now I'm fascinated at something like that, because you're someone that's self-contemplation. You're kind of contemplating who you are, where you are in the NBA media universe or in the universe in general. Right. But to put it in the context of you're doing what a lot of people might interpret as something kind of obscure, but then you've got people collecting it, and you actually buy in because it's true. You have such devoted followers that they're collecting these things, and then you kind of set up this framework and this structure. I think it really kind of speaks to I don't know, in the way that you've thought about your own approach and the way you present yourself. Is that something you think a lot about, your brand, if you will? I hate to use that word, but just the overall approach that you have to set up this kind of ecosystem, this community of people. Is that something you contemplate?
Yeah, creating this job or career or whatever you want to call it, I don't think it existed before I just kind of started doing it. And I never really went to college and thought, this is the way that I'm going to become an NBA journalist. It all just happened organically for me. So since it happened organically, it's being my own boss per se, in terms of building this opportunity as an NBA journalist. It's up to me to continue to think of new ways to expand the WOB persona and the brand, as you like to say. That's the biggest challenge here, is because this didn't exist before social media, before Twitter, before Periscope, before Vine. I could give you the story of WOB, and I've just evolved with the technology. Going live to the world wasn't even possible until Periscope was a thing in 2015. We take it for granted today, but you couldn't go live and do on the internet until just a couple of years ago. So I just kind of capitalized on that opportunity, and I'm like, no one else is doing this in the NBA. I can't be someone that studies X's and O's as good as Zach Lowe, or is as good on camera potentially as Rachel Nichols. So I got to find my own space if I want to make a career out of it. Right. And that's kind of just what I did.
By the way, don't sell yourself short. I was talking about you to other people off the air. Man, you should be on TNT. What I was talking about earlier, I think on this show, is WOB needs to be in a pod or something, whatever you call it, like a Madden Cruiser kind of thing. I'm serious. I think that way because I think it truly is a phenomenon. And I think I'm somebody who, I was gone for a while, came back, had a following on Twitter, still have a following, but I'm attuned to engagement, especially in this process. You kind of get to a point, I don't know about you, but there was a point where, oh, hell, I'm just going to do a tweet and, people are going to ratify it, that it's really important, and they're going to give me 1 million likes and things like that. But now it's kind of more, you kind of have to earn your way back. Whereas you're in that self-sustaining mode. You even pay attention now necessarily to the retweets and the likes and all that stuff, because it's just astonishing to see how many are out there. And we're talking, and here's the key thing, Rob. We're talking to a guy with bona fides, the guy who's at this solitary existence with the outmoded equipment that we can all relate to, who really is the Lone Ranger, who really is the outlaw Josie Wales. But is that something you don't even account for anymore, the popularity of what you're doing on Twitter?
Well, yeah, the biggest challenges of being out by yourself is you don't have the resources of a major network like some you just mentioned, of the ESPNs and the Turners and the Foxes. I'm kind of on my own little pirate ship over here, pun intended, pirating NBA content. And God bless them, because they still allow me to do so. They can shut me down in any minute. They own that footage, right? So there's something
you own them. By the way, you own them, and I want to emphasize that too. I sound like a life coach or something, but I've kind of been in your spot before, man. And you're the genuine article, and you can't underestimate. I mean, you got Twitter. Don't you have the main Twitter feed? Did that happen once, or because I saw it happen?
Right. In the past, I've certainly collaborated with the NBA too, as well. So it's not like they're not my enemy by any means. I'm just very thankful and gracious that they continue to let me do things that technically are not legal, but they see the value in it. And to just answer your question, I've always found the value, just if you're looking in terms of the engagement and stuff. I think the reason why that exists is because I am strictly, and I will stick to this, always a quality over quantity guy. You asked about doing a podcast about why aren't you doing this, this, and this. It's because if I don't think that this is great, I'm not doing it. I will never put anything in front of my audience that I am not passionately approval about. And that's a big challenge here, because at times you're paid to do quantity, and why are you dark still? It's because I don't like this, and I don't think I can drive, and I don't want to lose the value of when I speak, people listen. That's the biggest challenge by far, is the people that can produce that type of quantity in addition to the quality are the ones that I've really found out the key to this.
We're visiting with Rob Perez, Worldwide WAP. What's the longest you have sat writing a tweet, planning a tweet? What's the longest time you spent on one tweet, and how did it turn out?
I know the answer to this. So it was actually this summer. It was in the middle of NBA dead season, which lasts about 1 month. And I went on, you brought up the dating thing, but I went on a Tinder date, or I met someone at like the bar in Manhattan.
Wow.
And I put together the entire story of what happened last night, but only in emojis. So it was like 280 emojis, but I had to look up every single one of them. And I did it on the toilet. That's the thing people don't realize. So I was sitting on the toilet for maybe 40 minutes, just putting the story together. Just, I don't know. That's the way I wanted to tell the story without like.
Now, have you ever done that?
Weird.
You just came up with that, right? You just came up with that idea, or
yeah.
You kind of do it in bits and pieces already, but you said, wow, I'm just going to do the ultimate War and Peace of emojis now. I'm going to put it all together.
Yeah. I'm sure someone has told a story in the form of emojis before. I think the Egyptians did that with hieroglyphics. So maybe I'm plagiarizing the Egyptians,
right.
But that was just at the time, I'm like, I want to tell the story from last night, but I don't want to like write it because it feels like self-promotion and cringy. So I'm just going to tell the story through pictures, and I'm going to do it in emojis. It just felt different. I'm always challenging myself to think of original things that haven't been done on the internet or just beaten to a dead horse. I hate being a part of that. So this just felt new to me.
Now, this is something that I do. Don't tell anybody, but I do a lot of searching. And I think when you're trying to come up with content and what you do, it's an inexact science, and it really is dependent, I think, on this tweet. It's life and death. No. It really is. I can't go out. I can't do this. I can't pay my phone bill. I can't do anything. It takes priority over World War III, this next tweet. And I think you have, I mean, maybe you don't, but that's kind of been, it's like craziness. People that can't really relate to it. It's a devotion to your craft. And you have such a intangible, abstract nature to what you do that it's a blessing because you're kind of inventing it as you're going along. But of course, it could be the bad news too. But what about like surfing around Twitter or, searching on TweetDeck, or do you do anything like that besides just, oh, let me look at a game. Oh, let me think of a meme, do the art and do this stuff. All right, where's the cheat code? How are you cheating on this?
Well, I like everyone else, I have a timeline which I have open when the games are on, and I can draw inspiration from something someone has said in the past. The challenge here is, how do you come up with your own unique angle every single time without potentially unintentionally plagiarizing somebody?
Right.
Because
it's tough.
It's really hard. So anytime I come up with a joke, sometimes I'll search it just to make sure no one has done it first, because then the way the internet works without context, they're just going to call you out in 2 seconds for it. So, so for me, my audience and engagement has gotten so rabid at this point that every tweet does kind of feel like life or death, because if I tweet
you're
something,
accountable.
Yeah. If I tweet something stupid, malicious, not funny, there's many categories here. That's the one tweet that everyone that is waiting around the block to slap me in the face is going to jump on, and will be the end of getting me off of Twitter. So I have to be cognizant of that, of how do I get yelled at for this tweet before I press tweet? Am I okay with the consequences? Yes or no? It's just a process that I have to go through.
Do me a favor. All right. Because this is only the beginning. You're going to explode. And eventually you're human. I'm human. I've done stupid things, but don't ever hire a crisis PR firm. Never. Don't do it. Follow your own I mean, first of all, you're a great guy. It's never going to happen, right? But you just seem like a guy. You seem like the guy who, yeah, I'm going to listen to you. We'll have lunch. You can give me some ideas. And yeah, I'm still in an apartment and blah, 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 blah. And you're going to give me advice, and I'm going to completely ignore it and go back. And no, I really don't know what I'm going to be doing tonight, but I'm going to find a way to do it. You're kind of like going into the darkness every day. And it takes so much confidence, and to not have this built-in I'm describing myself in a sense, this built-in support system. It's really an inspiration to me, and it should be to a lot of different people. So of course, I'm talking, this is supposed to be an interview of you. I apologize, but I'm so excited to talk to you. I really am. I am. So, but I want to talk to you now about the league, the association. And specifically, I want to ask you about the Clippers, because I'm in LA, and the Lakers, but not just because I'm in LA. I mean, right now you're in New York. So we're sitting around on the radio or on this show and on Twitter. Oh yeah, we're the Mecca now. I mean, what is the thought process going on in terms of what you recognize is going on in LA right now, the significance of it, and from all of your followers, what's the sense? Is this, I mean, LA now the Mecca of basketball?
Well, I'm very defensive about the term the Mecca, because the Mecca has nothing to do.
Milwaukee.
No, yeah, the Mecca of basketball is called New York, not because the NBA teams are good. That has nothing to do with the Mecca. There's a court on every corner here on the island of Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens. It don't matter. Like, basketball is culture. It's part of the lifestyle here. And that's just one. The NBA teams are a very one little drop in the bucket as to why. I could talk about this for an hour, but it has nothing to do with the NBA teams. So Los Angeles isn't the Mecca, but I would call it the capital of NBA basketball at the minute, because they have arguably the two best teams that are there. So they can have that for sure. And they have the most amount of players that have come from Los Angeles have made it to the league. So you can even make that argument too, that it's the most important city. But in terms of the actual word, the Mecca, you would just simply have to talk. You have to ask people like why they wear Timbs in the summer here in New York. It's just a cultural thing. And people appreciate what street ball has provided, not only for the game of basketball, but for the city. And I don't want to hear anything also about the Nets, like taking over the team in New York. I've made this. Kevin Durant's out here saying how it's not cool to be a Knicks fan anymore. And while his points were valid, like his reasons were completely valid, that the team hasn't been good since a lot of people have been alive, that's fair. But the difference here is that if the Nets win a title, like the Canyon of Heroes where they host the parade for the Rangers, the Knicks, all the New York teams, it would be empty. They have to go to Bushwick and give away free craft beer to get anybody to show up in Brooklyn. And that's just the fact of the matter, and why there's so many Knicks fans here. So don't tell us that they're not cool anymore, because there's millions of people that'll disagree.
Right. I think this is what defines, like when I say bona fides, you got the bona fides, what you just did. You went on and on. Most people tuned it out. Doesn't matter. You're never going to let go of it, because you're right. You actually are right. And you have history on your side. You've got Marty freaking Glickman on your side. And you should have, well, you can't really reach through on the cable, but when I said the Mecca in Milwaukee, you know what I was talking about, right?
Yeah,
of course, right?
In the court.
What the hell are you talking about, Junior Bridgman? I'm talking about the capital of the world, New York City, brother. Junior Bridgman, what are you talking about? But so now everybody already has all their overreaction, pop psychology assessments of what's going on with the Lakers, what's going on with LeBron. Let's stay on them right now. I'm a Clippers guy. I've already I'm shooting my shot. Clippers are going to win the NBA title. All right. I'm not going to relax, because that's not what I do. I'm going to shoot my shot now. And I love the Clippers. But what about the Lakers? What is your impression so far, what you're seeing from that team? Break that down for me.
Right. Before that game was played, my preseason prediction, which I don't hold a lot of value with, was Lakers versus Sixers in the finals. But after watching that Clippers team play in person, I haven't seen a 24-hour lockdown, Pelican Bay type lockdown defense since maybe the Raptors last year. But this defense is going to translate at every degree of playoff basketball. They have two guys. I don't even have Paul George yet, and they look this good. Like the fact that they can lock any team down with the wingspans that they got, and the versatility of Kawhi Leonard is eye-opening. And on the contrary, the Lakers here, they arguably have two better players. We can do this all day, in Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And you'd figure, like, if it comes down to star power, the Lakers should supersede here. But they learned a lot of things in that first game. The first of which is their bench is nowhere near the prestigious bench of the Clippers. Number two, LeBron, him running point guard, needs to stop, because he loves to dribble the ball off and just hand it off. If he's going to do that, stop, please, for the love of God. And also, they need some big guys down there, not named Dwight Howard, to protect the rim, because Dwight just can't do it anymore. So they learned a lot, which is good. And they'll play the Clippers 3 more times for the rest of the season. But wow, the Clippers are really just jaw dropping.
Visiting with Rob Perez, Worldwide Wob. Going to let you go here in about 2 hours. No, we're going to let you go in about 2 minutes, but or whenever you want to leave. Because I could literally just ask you questions all damn day. We haven't even scratched the surface. By the way, you notice I tried to steer it to the Lakers, but like me, you had to go back to the Clippers. I just couldn't. They're like a magnet now because. But I want to go back to the Lakers real fast. And you talked about the point guard. What about Rondo coming back, and then eventually Kuzma coming back? I mean, this is it possible that this really isn't the Laker team that maybe we're going to see on Christmas, and that's when we'll know, or is he? And the other thing is, it's like 5 questions. There's no way to answer them all. I'm going to do it anyway. But is LeBron broken down? Because I've heard a lot of people saying that. Is he? Do you get a sense that maybe he is starting to go into a steeper decline physically?
Yeah, so the first question about is this the Laker team that we're going to see on Christmas? The answer is no, because if Kuzma, Caruso didn't play, neither did Rajon Rondo. That was the whole point of putting LeBron at point guard, was there's no one else on the roster to do it if you're not playing Caruso. So their biggest challenge here isn't depth, because that Laker bench, even though they got exposed against the Clippers, if they get those 3 guys back, then the bench guys, the Avery Bradley doesn't have to play starters minutes. He can play his specific role, why he was brought onto the team. That's fine. So I'm okay with the Lakers' depth. Where I struggle a little bit here is their outside shooting. So when you're running, I don't want to hear the letters KCP again until I'll take them out of the alphabet until this dude stops getting out of the rotation.
And you literally will. You literally will, yeah. And you'll post it, right?
I will. And I'm saving. I got those tweets in the drafts tonight for when he throws up his first brick. So you have KCP out there who's supposed to stretch the floor for you guys. This is why Kuzma is so important and why Caruso is so important. Because if you don't have any shooters, then LeBron and Davis are going to get swamped in the paint the same way Giannis did against the Raptors, the same way the Raptors funneled every Warrior into the paint. It just doesn't work if you don't have outside shooting. So I think that's the answer to your first question. And then the second about LeBron's durability, you got to, like, even before we answer this man has done this for now 17 years. It is the most impressive statistic in my mind, better than any advanced analytic. The fact that he's able to play at this level for 17 years. So all props to him, but they do say Father Time is undefeated for a reason. Father Time is undefeated because LeBron, I think, is human. I think his body's somewhat human, and that somewhat human part of his body just won't be able to dunk from the foul line anymore after 2 decades. So I don't think we're there yet, but the Clipper game was the first time in 17 years that I watched the game and I said, I don't think LeBron is the best athlete, not best player, but the best athlete on the floor anymore. That sure looked like Kawhi Leonard.
This is the kind of question that's going to make news. That's going to get picked up on the wire because you are so influential. You are this transcendent figure. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. It's the truth. You're wearing a freaking Mets shirt right now. If that's not a bona fides thing, if that's not an authentic, genuine guy sitting in his apartment going on about Rucker Park, right? And the Mecca and all that stuff. But this is the kind of question that's going to get people's attention. When you sit back down and we get done and you're getting ready to watch the games tonight or throughout the season, who is the number one player that you think, oh, I got to go, oh, what's happening? Oh, I know they're playing the Hawks. Doesn't matter. Who is that player that you seek out and that is almost, or is there just one? Is there more than one that's kind of almost a companion to you that you just watch because you watch them for whatever reason it is you watch them?
Yeah, so the beauty about the NBA is the star power. You can answer that question with 5 different guys. LeBron still has that. If Kevin Durant was still around, it might be KD. Kawhi's in that category now, and so is probably Giannis and Harden. Those 5 guys, if they're on TV.
Repeat that one more time.
LeBron.
No, but I'm serious.
No, yeah, LeBron, KD, Giannis, Harden, and to put Steph in there too.
Harden is number 1 on my list.
Yes,
Harden is my guy. That's like an acquired kind of, or not acquired, but that's a personality profile if Harden is your guy. For the fan.
He's a light. If you whether you hate him or you love him, you want to comment on what he's doing. So for the timeline, he's unreal, and I have to add Kawhi to that list. I think I forgot him the second time. So it's those. So 6.
Did you mention Kyrie?
I'm going to leave him out of it.
Newsmaker right there.
Well, I'm going to leave him out of it in terms of like pulling a global type of opinion Like if the Nets are playing the Phoenix Suns on a Wednesday night, he's not, unless he drops that 50 spot like he did opening night, he's not going to pull that same type of like audience.
So all right, we've got the all-stars, right? We got great players, but what about a guy that's maybe a great player, but a little bit under the radar, but is just or do you have a guy? Maybe he could be on the Knicks or whatever, on the Mavs. I don't know. Who are you just, I hate to use the word pet, but like kind of your pet players, and it could be more than one that you're just like, oh yeah, I just got to go check the guy out. I got to see what is he doing?
Yeah, this is the easiest answer in the world. Unfortunately, he's not in the league anymore, but it was always J.R. Smith. And now that J.R. Smith's gone, it's Boban Marjanovic, the 7'4" center. Now he's currently on Dallas. But anytime Boban does anything, because he's such a open and authentic and funny guy, if he plays point guard and starts running a fast break, those videos go crazy because he has such a cult following of like super NBA niche. But he is amazing to watch because he just takes the ball and drops it in the hoop. He doesn't even dunk. So he's kind of like a bizarro Taco Fall. The original Taco Fall, if you will.
So what about Taco? I mean, are you following him? I mean, what's going to happen there? That could be a guy that is going to be right in that category, right?
Yeah. Taco is going to draw big. People are chanting his name in the first quarter that we want Taco. And let's be honest, it's because he's 7'6", 7'7", but he's a young kid. People feel like they've been part of his story because they saw him take on Zion in the NCAA tournament. And he's just become this fan favorite. People love watching Andre the Giant simply because of this marvel of the human species that this is possible. And to his credit, he still had to make an NBA roster. Like, just because you're tall, there's plenty of tall people in the world. They don't all play in the NBA. So to watch him actually translate those skills that he had in college and convince an NBA team to give him a two-way contract is a major deal. All you want to do is root for the guy.
All right, one more question. And it's not a stupid question, but it's kind of an outlier question. And, this guy, you talk about a lightning rod with Harden. This is a guy that everybody has an opinion of, and it kind of covers the spectrum. Trae Young, where are you on Trae? Is this guy a championship player? Is he a consistent all-star? Is he way overrated because you have that group of people? It seems like it, going all the way back to college. He's always kind of been in that situation. I mean, is this guy a guy? Let me ask you this. Is he a first-team all-star potentially down the road and a championship type player? Where are you on it?
I debated this question with a colleague of mine that we're asking if Trae Young is an all-star. Will he be an all-star one day? And after you watch him, what he did in Detroit last night, it's because we were leaning towards no, because it's so hard for a little player to be that good. The Isaiah Thomases of the world. You have to be Chris Paul at that size. Like, Chris Paul is a god, point god. You have to be that good
point
to be
god.
An all-star. Point god. They call him the point god for a reason. Yeah. But you have to be Chris Paul level to be an all-star in the NBA. And Trae Young, if he can consistently make the shots that he's making, I don't know if he can, but if last night it's just one game of sample size, he's severely underrated, and he's not getting the attention he deserves because he's in Atlanta. And I do need to say this, that I was the first to make fun of Trae Young in Summer League. He went out there and shot 3 straight air balls, not at Las Vegas Summer League, but at Utah Summer League. And I was the first to call him out for it. And I even when I interviewed him, I told him up front in his face that I'm the guy that exposed you for your air balls. You're more than happy to rebuttal to me on camera and like put me on blast, because I'm willing to take L's as much as I'm willing to give them. But since then, like, his confidence, he's a passer. He has vision like Chris Paul. The only concern that anyone's ever going to have with him is on the defensive side, because when he's guarding Ben Simmons, who's Godzilla versus Mothra,
that's a big deal.
It's a big difference. So Trae has to be as good as he was last night to be a great NBA player. It's hard to believe he can do it for 82 games, but Steph can.
Well, and I think it's an intangible thing. Maybe I don't want to insult the guy, kind of between the ears. You got to really commit yourself. And it's not necessarily that he's not smart. Obviously, he is a hell of a lot smarter than me. A great NBA player. But I think that there's kind of an extraordinary outlier level of commitment to be able to do things consistently. I think consistency is the hallmark. So when you talk about a first-team NBA guy, I mean, that's a 1 in a billion person. And it takes not just great physical skills. God knows he has them. But it takes a certain mentality. And, Is he on the right team? Does he have the right coach? Does he have the right players around him? That's a big function of what we're talking about, but the people don't talk enough about.
Yeah, he's got Vince Carter on that team as clearly a teacher, like who has had an impact on that entire organization. It's a roster filled with young guys that are just either rookies or just coming out of their rookie season. Then they have Vince in the locker room, who they clearly brought back because of his impact. They wouldn't have given him a contract if they didn't see that return there in terms of being this player coach. They're doing all the right things. It's just a matter if they can continue to do it over the course of an 82-game season.
So if I knocked on your door tonight about 9 o'clock and said, "Hey man, let's go down to Chipotle," would you go down, or are you locked down in your place? You will not.
I wouldn't even answer the door. I'm not bringing anybody over here during games on. Hell no. I got headphones on. I'm locked in.
No social life.
No, hell no. That's why I complain about my dating life all the time. I don't get it.
Now wait a minute. So, but you're doing all the social things during the day then when there aren't games. I mean, so you're not just holed up.
No, yeah, I go outside and I do a studio show here in New York as well. I go out and I do normal human things like during the normal hours, but then my work begins when most people are leaving their work. So that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's like Soylent Green. You're in a pod or something. You're not really human. So last thing, you got the Mets on. So you're a Mets guy, obviously, right? And
I am, unfortunately.
So that must mean you're a Jets guy too, right? Or does it?
No, they usually go hand in hand. If you're Mets, it's the Ets. You're Mets, Nets, and Jets in this city is probably the traditional way to do it. I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan. That's a story for another day. But Jim Harbaugh got me hooked, and I was just a fan. And
you ruined I'm a Kansas City Chiefs guy. And Jim Harbaugh. I'm talking about Jim Harbaugh as a player, quarterback number 4.
Yeah,
is that what you're referring to?
Captain Comeback, the 95 AFC Championship, when he threw the Hail Mary to Jerome Pathon in the back of the end zone. And there was no instant replay, so they couldn't overrule it.
This was freaking awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing it. I really appreciate it, Rob. This is great, man.
Thanks for having me, Brooks. Talk to you soon.
That's Rob Perez, Worldwide Wob. He is a legend. He literally is like a mythical figure, and we appreciate him coming on here on SportsbyBrooks on Fancred. I mean, the thing about him is, I'm sure there are a lot of people, well, maybe not anymore because, I've heard this about Twitter. If you're going to be on Twitter, you're on it. So the growth at CNBC, so the growth of Twitter really isn't there. Now they've got to monetize whatever they're doing. And by the way, have you noticed, if you've been on Twitter, by the way, if you're not in the media, I thought about this a lot. I should have asked Rob about this. Why would you be on Twitter? I guess it's kind of an experience where you watch. I see people interacting with their buddies. They'll reply on something that I tweet to somebody. I'm thinking, oh, they're replying to a celebrity or somebody. No, it's just like their buddy who has like 3 followers or something. But no, that's cool. I wonder though, do people do that? Or is it more like Instagram or nothing anymore because they got scarred by Facebook? But I'm like, if you don't do what I'm doing or Rob's doing, why would you be? So I will say this, man. Twitter is, of all of the, online, they're basically software sites. That's what we're talking about. That's what this is. It's software. The key to Twitter is those suggested follows, right? The key to Facebook is the algorithm that matches you with people, presents you with things, whether it's people or events or ads, whatever it is. I mean, it's a software company. This is not about, one domino after the next domino after. It's organic. No. That's not how it works. We're going to contrive it and fool you and deceive you into follow that person. Ooh, that looks good. And then 3 months later, why am I following this person? What was I doing that night? But when you're on Twitter and you don't have a responsibility, why would you be on Twitter if you're not in the media? And here's my thing about Twitter. And I'll give you an example. And this is what makes it has so much potential because it has embedded itself in our lives. It's endemic to our society now. There's so much power there. Let me give you a quick example. So I'm down to the Venice Pier here in Venice Beach, California. And I saw like the biggest yacht I've ever seen in my life. And that's saying something when you're outside Marina Del Rey and they're going by every day. But it's like the biggest thing I've ever seen. It's like Dan Snyder's. By the way, Dan Snyder has an IMAX theater on his yacht. It's the stupidest thing ever. The only thing worse than that would be employing Bruce Allen still. But so I'm looking at this yacht, and all right, I'm an older guy, so I'm like 1986, where you have the record player and you have the, rotary phone or whatever it is. We don't have so, but that's the mentality when I'm my age. I'm sure if you're younger, it's like bing, 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 bing. You automatically respond, obviously, especially the younger that you are. It's got to be maddening. I'm not a parent. It's got to drive parents crazy. My kids are smarter than I am. Damn. My kids are getting the answer to these questions before I do, because I'm still too, I'm an older person. I'm still too stupid to not realize Google is a question machine. Anything that's going on in my life, I can Google it. I can get the answer. I can get the directions. I don't have to. Right. So this is an example of Twitter, though. The application of Twitter is, what do? I go on Twitter and I do a quick search, yacht, Venice Beach. Boom. I've got like 100 tweets and links to articles from the search function that tells me exactly not only what that yacht is or who, but like who's there. It's like, Rick Caruso, the booster, and Olivia, Aunt Becky's daughter. Remember that USC thing that happened? Rick Caruso, the big booster at USC. No, it's like I know everything that's going on in that yacht. I know what time they're going to have dinner on that yacht because of Twitter. That's the power. I mean, remember we had these big wildfires. Maybe you don't, because we always have wildfires. But last November, we had some of the worst wildfires, the worst wildfire since I've lived here for like 20 something years in Malibu. It was unbelievable. And had the fire, a report just came out about the fire department, all of the connected fire departments. They tried to use Twitter, but they weren't organized enough. It wasn't systematic in the way that they were alerting people, right? And so the whole evacuation was a complete debacle in Malibu. It hadn't happened in a long time, but they tried to utilize, and that's what I mean by potential. The people at Twitter, I don't really think that they recognize, or they're too scared to use it, what they have. So, boy, that was just, we talked briefly about, what did we talk about? The Houston team playing the World Series tonight. I think it's the Nationals, right? And all I can say is, and I've said it a million times already, the Astros are going to rip off like 4 games. And everybody like me is saying, oh, it's karma. No, that team's too good. They're just too good. And if they lose that World Series, I went to Catholic school. You go to church, right? That's the last place they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, God exists in here. Give us some money. No, they don't even say that, right? That's the last place to try to figure out, is there a supernatural, something's going on here? Right. If the Nationals win the World Series, that's the closest thing you're going to get in sports. With the start, with the history, with the nature of the team, this is truly historic. And I'm a baseball history guy. I grew up reading baseball history books since I learned to read, but worked in baseball. This is nobody cares about it anymore. They used to, but this is otherworldly, what's happening right now. I mean, you think about, I'll leave you with Verlander and Garrett Cole. Are you kidding me? The Nationals? What are you talking about? And now we're going back to DC? What? I don't know. I mean, this is when the older I get, the more I kind of think about things like that. Yeah, applying to my own life. Hey, since I know you're out there now, can you help me out or whatever? So, boy, that was a great week. We had a bunch of guests that were phenomenal. That's like the best interview we've done, actually, because I talked the whole time, right? That's why Brooks thinks it's the best interview, because he talked the whole time. Jesus Christ, let the guy talk. It's not about you, Brooks. But I mean, Rob Perez, that's amazing because that was like 40 minutes. And literally it flew because there's still 200 questions I have left. And you could hear it. You know, we have some commonality. Of course, Rob doesn't think we have any commonality. I'm down here, right, on the ground. And he's right. Who am I? I'm nobody compared to him. This is the guy who has the little Twitter machine that puts, and you have to go experience Worldwide Wob, W-O-B, all one word. You got to go and look. And you have to follow it, right? That's, boy, by the way, Cam, is that the most embarrassing thing? You know, we haven't known each other that long. That's got to be the, you know, embarrassing, weird thing that I didn't realize that was Adam's. But why would I? Because that was Adam Silver when he had a few more LBs, right? In the avatar for Worldwide Wob. That his avatar, you know, the image. That's Adam Silver. Really? Because Adam Silver is very, okay, so you're agreeing with me, right? That it doesn't look like Adam Silver. It actually looks a little bit like Rob Perez. Maybe if Rob Perez was, I don't know, had a membership to Golds or something. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the big issue is when Rob is talking about things, he'll do like cryptic things about his personal life, whatever it is. He's such a master at it. He'll take things because he always changes the avatar. He always has the same face, but then he'll change things around the head. He'll put a hat on, or he'll put a scarf on, or he'll put whatever it is, emojis or something, but he changes it almost every day. That's one of the appeals of his. So much thought goes into it, right? But he puts his own personal life that he's telling us about onto the Adam Silver avatar. So I am justified. I'm not as big an idiot as I'm saying that I am. So we got to go. If we don't go, we'll never go, because I'll just keep talking because we had such a great week. I'm so excited, and I'm really excited for next week. Man, you got to come back. I'm right there on your Twitter feed. We're right there in your pocket now. I'm on your phone. Ooh, Brooks is on your phone. Oof, that's scary. No, it's not scary, because now you have somebody to talk to who's not going to tell you, I was right about Dak Prescott, right? Let's open the phones, and so I can talk to a bunch of people who agree with me that I was right. I'm on the record. You're not going to hear me say that. If I ever say that, just shut the show down. Shut it down. So that's going to do it for today. I don't even want to say goodbye today. This is such a great show. But next week, we'll be back noon Eastern time. We're going to be talking NFL, football. This is like the first day that we haven't been like inundated with football. And what a great day to pick, right? Friday, going into the big games, right? One big game, LSU Auburn, I think is the game that you're going to want to watch. And I said this on Twitter yesterday before I leave. Go out the door, get pushed out the door. Cam's like pushing me. Auburn in this situation, you're going to bet the game. Auburn does not have the ability because they have a true freshman quarterback. It's not that great. And they got a dummy calling plays who's the head coach, Gus Malzahn, who doesn't tailor the offense to the limitations or the strengths of his 18-year-old quarterback. You don't have that with Auburn. It hasn't changed. And so any scoring that they're going to be doing, it's probably going to be field position, or they'll break a run, a long pass, maybe, whatever it is, special teams. LSU screws up. But you're not going to see a lot of sustained drives from Auburn. You're just not. And there's no chance they can beat LSU if that Auburn defense, which is a good defense, is on the field the whole game. That's why Florida lost that game. Florida could have won that game. But the Florida offense wasn't equipped through the whole game to sustain drives. So, as I said on Twitter yesterday, if you're betting the game, if you're on top of it, and you see Auburn get out in front, let's say there's a turnover, or they hit a big run, or the kickoff return for a touchdown, and Auburn goes up, 14-0 or something like that, 10, fade the hell out of Auburn, lay a wager on that and fade whatever the situation is. This game could have a lot of points. Auburn could score a lot of points, but they're not going to win. And I don't think Alabama's going to beat LSU either, because Alabama's defense is down this year. Got a lot of holes, which they never do. By the way, did you see that video of Nick Saban? You know, he's the guy who's always talking about rat poison. Go on Twitter or go online. Just Google Nick Saban, and the video will come up right now. And the news at the very top of the Google results. Yikes. Cam, did you see that video of Nick Saban? That is like the oldest I've ever seen him look. You know, he has the spray-on hair in the Aflac commercials with those ridiculous rings as like toy rings. Yeah, I don't know about that commercial. But yeah, he's got the spray can hair, the Ron Popeil old guy reference hair. And but wow, jowly, irritable. Rat poison, right? That's rat poison. If rat poison could talk, it was Nick Saban yesterday. And you know, but I'll say this much. And having been in that media room with Nick Saban, and I've covered Alabama football, Georgia football, you name it, South Carolina, SEC. People are laughing. It's not that big of a deal. All they care about is, hey, am I going to get my press pass? Is it going to be renewed? But other than that, nobody takes it seriously. It's like a show. And that was a show yesterday. It was. Don't take it seriously. That's the way it is. Nothing matters. Nothing is serious when it comes to when you're on top of the world like Nick Saban is, I guess. So that's going to do it. Thanks to Cam Smith. Thanks to everybody at Fancred. We'll be back next week with some amazing shows for you. Hope you join us noon Eastern time, weekdays here on Fancred. And so for my producer, Cam Smith in Boston, this is Brooks Melchior live in Los Angeles saying so long. This has been Sports by Brooks on Fancred.